It started as a simple idea. Every cafe in town needed a gimmick, and ours had one. A big glass jar by the register with a hand-painted label that said the apology jar. The rules were easy. Anyone could drop in a note, anonymous or signed, saying sorry for something, big or small, real or symbolic. Some were funny, some heartbreaking. Sorry for eating your leftovers? Sorry for falling out of love? Sorry for what happened that night? It became a thing. People came in just to read them. I loved watching customers linger by the jar, holding their coffee and reading strangers' regrets like secret prayers. Then one morning, while emptying the jar for the weekly display board, I found a folded slip of paper that stopped me cold. It was addressed by name, to me. My hands shook as I opened it. I'm sorry I left when you needed me most. You didn't deserve that silence. You deserved an explanation. I hope you're okay. No name, no handwriting I recognized, but somehow I knew who it was. Eli. We'd been best friends once, more than that maybe, though we never said it out loud. Then one night, after my father's funeral, I'd called him in tears, and he never answered. Not that night, not any after. Just gone. For years I told myself I didn't care. But seeing that note in my hands brought it all back. The sound of his laugh, the weight of his absence, the way I'd stopped reaching for my phone after a while because I knew he wouldn't call. I read the note a dozen times that day. I wanted to be angry, but mostly I just felt tired. That evening, after closing, I wrote a note of my own and slipped it into the jar. I forgive you, and I'm sorry too for holding on to the hurt longer than I should have. The next morning, the note I'd left was gone. Someone had taken it. A few days later, a new one appeared. Same neat handwriting. Thank you. Maybe we can start again someday. I smiled, folded the paper, and tucked it into my pocket. Some apologies don't need a face or a conversation. Sometimes all you need is a jar, a few words, and the courage to finally let go. It had been almost 6 months since the note. By then, I'd stopped checking the jar every day. I told myself I'd moved on, that forgiveness meant closing that chapter. But deep down, a small part of me still looked for his handwriting every time I emptied the slips. Then one evening, just before closing, I saw him. Eli. He was standing by the counter, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the jar like he was looking for something he'd lost. His hair was shorter, his face thinner, older somehow. My heart slammed against my ribs, but I forced myself to stay calm. He ordered coffee like a stranger, polite, steady voice, no flicker of recognition. When he turned to leave, I said his name. Just his name. He froze, then slowly looked back. There was a pause, the kind that feels heavier than words. He came back to the counter and said softly that he wasn't sure if he had the right to show up again, but the note I'd left in the jar had given him the courage to try. We sat down in the quiet corner booth, the same one we used to claim on lazy Sundays when life felt easier. He told me the truth. The night I called him, the night of my father's funeral, he'd been driving home from work when his brother crashed his car. Eli had been at the hospital for days, juggling guilt, fear, and grief. By the time he got the strength to reach out, too much time had passed. And shame, he said, grows fast in silence. He hadn't written that first note expecting me to ever see it. He just needed to say sorry somewhere that felt safe. He'd heard about the apology jar through a coworker and recognized my cafe in the photo online. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to be angry again for the years of quiet, for the questions that ate at me. But sitting across from him, I saw what the past had done to him too. He looked haunted in the same way I'd felt. So I just nodded and said I was glad he came back. We talked until closing. About grief, about growing up, about the strange ways people lose and find each other again. When he left, he didn't ask for anything. No promises, no new beginnings. Just a small smile and a quiet thank you. After he walked out, I went to the jar and dropped in one last note. Some stories don't end. They just learn to breathe differently. The next morning, when I checked, it was gone. Years passed. The cafe changed. New owners, new paint, new faces. But every time I walked by that corner of the street, I could still see the outline of what used to be. The little space that once smelled like espresso, old books, and forgiveness. I sold the place when my life started moving in another direction. A new city, a slower pace, a kind of peace I didn't think I'd ever earn. But part of me always missed it. That glass jar sitting by the register, glowing under the morning light. Then one afternoon, years later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just my name, written in neat handwriting I didn't recognize. Inside was a photo. It was the cafe. Still there, still open. And on the counter, a new jar. The label had faded, but I could still read the words. The apology jar. There was a note tucked in with the photo, handwritten. Short. We found your idea in an old newspaper clipping. People still come here to leave apologies. It's become a tradition. One of the notes said this jar once helped two friends find their way back to each other. Thought you'd like to know. I sat there for a long time, holding that letter. The paper was thin, the ink smudged at the corners, maybe from the person's hands, maybe from the ghosts of every sorry ever left inside that glass. I thought about Eli, about that day we finally spoke, about how forgiveness doesn't erase pain. It just teaches it to live quietly beside you. We never became what we were again, but we stayed in touch, birthdays, holidays, sometimes silence, sometimes warmth, and that was enough. That jar was never really about apologies, it was about connection. Proof that even the smallest act of honesty can echo longer than you'll ever know. I placed the photo in a frame on my desk, not as a reminder of what was lost, but of what survived. Because maybe that's all life ever is, a collection of messages left behind for someone else to find when they need it most. And maybe, just maybe, that's the truest kind of forgiveness there is.